Welcome to the Core Volunteer Training, a program created to help our supporters, especially newer volunteers, connect with each other around the world and empower them to achieve their larger goals for climate advocacy. This week's essential topic is engaging community leaders. So as I said, I'm Todd Elvins. I'm CCL's Action Coordinator. My background, I have 25 years of experience in computer engineering of all things. I worked for, I have a PhD in computer engineering, and I worked for 10 years at San Diego Supercomputer Center with air, ocean, and earth scientists. And then I went out and worked as an entrepreneur, worked for Oracle, sold a startup company. I've been working as a volunteer for Citizens Climate Lobby starting in 2012 and on the staff since 2017. So these are our learning goals for tonight. At the end of the call, we're hoping that you'll be able to answer all of these questions. You'll understand CCL's Grasstops Engagement lever and how to get started doing Grasstops Engagement. You'll be able to identify and prioritize and engage with prominent community leaders in your locale. And you'll be able to work with your prominent community leaders to determine an action that will have a big, strong, persuasive impact on your member of Congress or their member of Congress, and you'll work with them to take that action. So here's the agenda. We're going to start off with a real quick review of CCL's 5 levers of political will. Then we'll talk about prioritizing engagements, that is identifying and prioritizing engagements. And then we'll talk about how do you engage with the folks once you figured out who they are. And then we'll talk about that notion of determining an action with a community leader and working with them to take the action. And then at the end, we're going to go over quickly some of CCL's online action teams. All right, I said I would start off with a review of CCL's 5 levers of political will, but I'm actually going to start off with a story. So this was years ago, back when CCL was working to educate Congress about our carbon fee and dividend legislative proposal before the bill was introduced. And I was meeting with a prominent local community leader. And he was a researcher, a retired city councilman, and he was alarmed about climate change. And so I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. He's going to be a pushover. I'm sure I can get him to sign an endorsement. So let me tell you ahead of time, the moral of this story is that you need to be sure that your prominent community leader is taking the most prominent action, the most persuasive action, and signing an endorsement may or may not be the most impactful action that they can take to show their support for the bill to their member of Congress. So that's going to be the moral at the end of the story. So I was having a coffee meeting with this local retired city councilman, and we built up a little bit of a relationship. We got to know each other. I told him about Citizens Climate Lobby and carbon fee and dividend. The bill hadn't been introduced yet. And at our coffee meeting, I was just about to make my ask. We're at the end of the coffee hour, and I was just about to ask him to sign an endorsement, and he interrupted me and he said, you know, Todd, my wife is on the city's Climate Action Committee. I'll ask her to get an endorsement for carbon fee and dividend from the city council. And I went, oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. That would be so powerful to have an endorsement. 2 months later, the city council unanimously passed a municipal resolution. And it was the first time that the conservative mayor had voted pro-climate on anything. This wasn't San Diego. This was a small town in the county of San Diego. So as I said, the moral of the story is to determine with your community leader what is the most impactful action they can take to show district support for the Energy Innovation Act. All right, so here's the 5 levers of political will. You've probably not seen them organized like this. The volunteers in your chapter are all probably working to pull one of these levers of political will. And you can see Grasstops Engagement is in the upper right-hand corner. Grasstops Engagement work demonstrates district support for the bill, that your lobby team, you can see that that's funneling endorsements and other actions into the lobby team, so that your lobby team, the group in your chapter, can deliver those endorsements and other actions to your members of Congress and their members of Congress. But how do we know that pulling the Grasstops lever influences members of Congress? So let's take a look at that. I'm going to tell the Jay Butera story. Jay Butera is a super volunteer who we might say invented the Grasstops lever. Jay lives in Pennsylvania, and years ago, he was working in Miami to try to get a meeting with a Republican member of Congress. He used a pile of signed endorsements to get the meeting, and then he brought community leaders with him to the meeting. Jay says, when I walked into Congressman Curbello's office with 3 Chamber of Commerce presidents and 3 mayors, it totally changed the conversation. This meeting may have ultimately helped to start the Climate Solutions Caucus. The lesson here is that pulling the Grasstops lever and including community leaders in a lobby meeting may have a big impact on your member of Congress. Our Grasstops Engagement lever of political will is based on the methodology and success from Jay's experience in Florida. The goal is for your prominent local community leaders to help to persuade their members of Congress to support the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So let's get into the part where we talk about how do we identify and engage with community leaders. Since you only have so many minutes in the day, you want to select your community leader engagements with care. You don't want to pick community leaders who are either not impactful on their member of Congress or are impossible to engage with, because you'll just be beating your head on the wall and spinning your wheels. You want to spend your time working on community leaders who you can connect with and also will have a big impact on the member of Congress when they take an action. So start by making a list of prominent community leaders in your vicinity, and then start to narrow down that list. Prioritize the ones who have special influence on their members of Congress, and then choose a few that you have access to through your personal or chapter network. So now you've got your short list. Here are some examples of especially good community leaders that you can put on the long list. So I'm jumping around a little bit, but let's jump back to the long list. So you're putting together just your initial long list and you haven't started to narrow it down yet. Here's some examples of especially good community leaders to put on your long list. Large local employers create jobs and a tax base in the district and state, and employees are voters. Chambers are important because they are collections of local businesses. Economists can help to explain the benefits of carbon pricing to your member of Congress and can answer their question. Locally elected officials include mayors, city council members, the county board of supervisors, and state-level electeds. Locally elected officials are especially good engagements because, 1, locally elected officials often have connections to and influence upon their members of Congress. They move in the same circles and they probably see each other. 2, climate change impacts are happening in their city, county, or state, the jurisdiction which is their responsibility. 3, since you voted the local elected officials into office, they are likely to be receptive to your meeting requests. They're probably going to take your meeting and you're without too much trouble. So those are 3 good reasons that you want to have local elected officials on your long list. And as I said, once you have your long list, you want to narrow that down to the people who you can get connected to and will take your meeting and will also have a big impact or be persuasive to their members of Congress. Once you have your short list of target community leaders, check with your group leader and in the group Grasstops Engagement Tracker, which is our database, on community to see if a CCL volunteer is already talking to that community leader. Probably it's unlikely if it's a local community leader. Your group leader would know about it probably. If not, If you don't find the community leader in the database, the Grasstops Engagement Tracker, enter them in the tracker so that other volunteers don't duplicate your effort. And you can find your way to the Grasstops Engagement Tracker using this short URL, cclusa.org/get, and get stands for Grasstops Engagement Tracker. Or you can go to your dashboard on Community and click Grasstops Tracker under My Tools on your dashboard. Engaging with a local community leader is a lot like building a relationship with your member of Congress. Start out by learning about your community leader before your meeting and be super prepared when you meet. You might, for example, look them up on LinkedIn to learn about their background. Also, before you meet, prepare an appreciation like you would if you're going to a lobby meeting. Then build a trusting relationship by being on time, proactive, helpful, and knowledgeable. During your first conversation, so you're just starting the engagement, and you're having your first conversation with somebody on your short list, ask some open questions to find out where they are on climate. So don't just jump right in and assume that they're alarmed or concerned about climate. Open questions start with the words what, where, when, and how. Next, you might want to connect over climate impacts that their business faces and what solutions are needed. So that's a great way to take the direction to take the conversation once you've talked to them a little bit. Once there's a relationship, educate them on the bill and CCL and determine with them an action that shows strong support for the bill, and work with the community leader to take the action. I've mentioned that community leaders can take many different actions to persuade members of Congress to support the bill. Here are some examples. They could schedule a call, a personal call, or a meeting with their member of Congress. And this works especially well if they already know their member of Congress. And a lot of community leaders do know their members of Congress or have met their members of Congress. Your community leader could schedule a call or a meeting with a newspaper editor and talk about climate impacts or climate solutions or climate risks to their business. Your community leader could issue a press release or write an op-ed with you for the newspaper. Your community leader could host a site visit, a nature walk, a roundtable, a business roundtable, or a presentation for their member of Congress. Your community leader could present at a chamber, a professional group, a Rotary Club, a union, or a trade association about climate, or they can engage their colleagues and help connect them with CCL or ask their colleagues to take some of these actions, or they can endorse the bill. And we'll talk about endorsing the bill in detail in just a minute. Municipal, county, state, school board, and faith-based resolutions endorsing the bill are an especially powerful type of endorsement for showing strong support to your members of Congress, because these type of organizations represent thousands of people. Remember my story at the beginning about the retired city councilman. That was the kind, this is what we ended up getting, was a municipal resolution. Resolutions do take extra work and could take months before they're finalized, so don't expect to get one of these next week. It'll take some work. You can find info on getting local resolutions, government resolutions, by searching on Community for local government resolutions. It takes you to a training page on CCL Community, and on that page there's links to a lot of different trainings. One of them is on a specific training on identifying, it's called Focusing Your Grasstops Outreach on influential members of your community. There's another training on bringing a community leader to a lobby meeting, and a bunch of others. Coming back to this slide on school board resolutions, a group of CCLers called Schools for Climate Action have found that a single email from a parent, teacher, or student is sometimes enough to get the school board to introduce and pass a climate resolution. You can find a link to Schools for Climate Action on Community. To be knowledgeable when you meet with your community leaders, you'll need to study up on the bill. You'll want to know in detail are 5 talking points about the bill and how the legislation works. You can find this information on the bill website, energyinnovationact.org. And you can also find this information on the community site, cclusa.org/bill. On community, look for a document called Frequently Asked Questions, and also another document called Responding to Public Questions. As I've mentioned, an important resource is the energyinnovationact.org website. On this website, you and your community leaders can learn our 5 talking points about the bill, learn how the legislation works, and see who has endorsed the bill. You can see the navigation for this bill website in the upper right-hand corner. The pages on this website are called How It Works, News, Statements, Supporters, and Endorse the Bill. On the news site is our news stories about the bill. On statements are some positive statements, many from NGOs. Supporters is a list of, we're up to about 1,400 endorsements from individuals and organization on the supporters page, and those are broken into categories. And on the Endorse the Bill page, you'll see this. As I said earlier, the ideal is for you to arrange, if they're ready, for your community leader to speak directly to their members of Congress. If your community leader is not ready or able to talk directly to their member of Congress about and express support for the bill, then endorsing the bill is also impactful. All bill endorsements are paperless and are submitted at energyinnovationact.org. The website is also mobile friendly, so they can sign the endorsement on their phone or their tablet or their computer or whatever they have in front of them. This slide shows the web form on the Endorse the Bill page, where your community leader can select either I'm endorsing as an organization or I'm endorsing as a prominent individual. And organizational endorsements tend to be a little bit stronger. Our definition of a prominent individual is a person who represents a collection of other people. You can find more details on that on CCL's Engaging Community Leaders training page. So you can click the link, the second link that I posted in the chat, and that'll show you a page of other links, and click the one that says Engaging Community Leaders. After your community leader's endorsement shows up on the supporters page, be sure to notify your liaison so that your liaison can deliver that endorsement to your member of Congress. Before we switch topics to action teams, I'll just repeat our overarching goal. We want our members of Congress to feel 100% certain that voting in favor of climate solutions is what their community leaders want. So that's why we have our Grasstops Engagement lever of political will. So let's shift gears and talk about action teams. An action teams are affinity groups where all the members of the action team share a common interest or passion. And all the action teams are supporting in some way. And we're up to 53 action teams on community. All the action teams are supporting in some way CCL's mission of enacting carbon pricing in the US Congress. Here's how to find the directory of action teams. Go to your dashboard on community, and community is community.citizensclimate.org. So go to your dashboard and look for the menu item along the top of the page that says Connect with Others, and click that, and you'll see a pull-down menu. And on that pull-down menu, select the item that is Action Teams. So when you click that, it'll take you to this Action Team directory. So a number of these action teams are mostly focused or completely focused on getting endorsements. So let's take a closer look at those. So our higher education action team, led by Clara Fang, is focused on getting endorsements from university presidents and universities. Our business climate leaders action team is, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail in a minute. is focused on getting endorsements from large companies. Our Catholics Action team has done an amazing job of getting endorsements from the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and our Outdoor Industry Action team is focused on getting endorsements from the ski industry and other outdoor industries like that. And of course, our Grasstops Engagement Action team, of which we have over 400 members now, is 100% focused on skills building in the area of Grasstops engagement. The Business Climate Leaders we'll talk about them in a minute, but they're a large organization. They started as an action team, the same way that all the other action teams started, and they now have their own website, and they have a big number, what is that? It looks like 11 or 12 sector teams with volunteers leading each of those sector teams. So they really are a bit of an advanced topic. So you might want to start in Grasstops Engagement and do some skills building, and then go and work with Business Climate Leaders, because they are doing a lot of really interesting stuff. Most recently, they've got a seafood sector team going. They're starting up a TV meteorologist sector team, because TV meteorologists are seen every night on television by tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of TV viewers. So have a look at businessclimateleaders.org if you'd like to see more information about them. So let's review our goals that I put out at the beginning of this webinar. One of the goals was to learn how to identify and prioritize prominent leaders who will have a big impact and help to persuade their members of Congress to show support for the Energy Innovation Act. The second goal was to talk about and learn how to engage with your local prominent community leaders, connect over climate impacts to their business, and build a trusting relationship. And then, of course, number 3 was to work with them to determine an action that will help to persuade their member of Congress to support the bill, and then work with them to take that action. We have an endorsement help desk that's staffed 24/7 by CCL volunteers. You can get in touch with them by sending an email to endorse@citizensclimate.org. The most frequent question that they get is, why hasn't my community leaders endorsement shown up on energyinnovationact.org yet? Why? It's been 3 days, it should be up there by now. So it turns out that we have a validation process where volunteers look at every endorsement that comes in, and we're up to 1,400 prominent endorsements, to make sure that that endorser really is who they say they are, and they really are prominent in the community. And that takes a few days. Once the volunteer team has gone through and validated the endorsement, then it goes to a staff member at CCL headquarters who takes a second look and verifies that that person really is who they say they are. So it can take up to a week for an endorsement to show up on the supporters page at energyinnovationact.org. But we feel confident that the people who do show up there really are who they say they are. But you can send any kind of question to endorse@citizensclimate.org. You can say, hey, I can't figure out how to use the Grasstops Engagement Tracker, or I'm having trouble with access, or I wasn't able to enter my endorsement, or I can't find it. Just send off an email and you'll get an answer, usually within 1 or 2 days. So here's my email if you have questions. I'm Todd@citizensclimate.org. And thank you for all you're doing. And I hope to see you in June in Washington, D.C. at our national conference.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration. And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.